Shalom Israel. First, I'm going to start by giving honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the elders, apostles, and bishops, the GMS Great Millstone, who rule well, teach, and edify, and peace and blessings. And to you, hopefully, like document Akwat in his household of faith. My name is Ishaya from the Arizona Church in Ottawa, and Ratazah. Going to make an edifying video, going into this topic, following that spirit of Captain Kirk. So this is an event that happened a couple days ago, and this is just a representation of the spirit that's out there, and the fact that these Edomites are going to go back to that nature that they once, had openly, but that they hid, okay? Because Edomites, right, they don't fucking love you. That's the bottom line. You might think some of them are cool, and granted, there's some Jakes that look like Edomites. Some of them could be cool because they actually are Jakes, okay? But that's, for the vast majority, a lot of these motherfuckers are just straight up devils, right? And they don't love you, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans here in Babylon, and even abroad, across the world, not every nation is so accepting, of Israelites at all. Some nations have like a zero tolerance policy. Some parts of China, Japan, Korea, there's been reports of so-called black men going there and getting spat on, called racial slurs and names, and they ain't gonna do shit about it. What you gonna do, call the cops over there? They don't give a fuck. There's certain nations, I believe it's like Spain. You go there as with dark skin, you look like a black man in Spain, they're gonna be on that ass. Okay? Not everywhere, hides that spirit. But here in Babylon, America, they've hid that spirit, to push an agenda. That's really why they do it. Okay? That subtlety, because this devil is a subtle man. Okay, but following this Captain Kirk situation, okay, you're going to have that spirit waking up in a lot of these Edomites to just say, fuck it. We're at war with these people, okay? We're at war with them. And that MAGA, make America great again, a part of that and a part of the reason why they want to make it great again, when was America its greatest? During its revolutions, when you niggas was on the bottom. Okay? That's when they were at its greatest. Okay, that's when they were the most powerful, because America right now has been on a steady decline for the last 10, 15 years. Okay? But anyways, reading says NAACP issues warning after MAGA group targets HBCU's state university. Okay, so, these people, literally going into that spirit like Captain Kirk. You got these two Edomites, dressed like they're about to go to golf with a MAGA hat, some fucking Zins in a water bottle. You can just see that their intention isn't to edify, isn't to speak, isn't to have any type of, situation like that. It's to antagonize. And what happens when you antagonize a group of niggas? Okay? And these are, Jakes that go to college, but some of them are at college not because they want to be there, because their mama sent them as there to get them away from the hood. And when you got a nigga like that and you antagonize certain people enough, you're going to get altercations, especially with Judah. Like Southern Kingdom, like Benjamin, the so-called Jamaicans. Jamaica is a murder capital of the world. You step on a nigga's shoes, you get about 15 fucking traces right up in your face. Okay, so, and what are they going to use? Because eventually, one of these things is going to turn out not so good. They're going to antagonize the wrong nigga, going against even Southern Kingdom. Even Northern Kingdom. Northern Kingdom will jump out on your ass if you antagonize them enough. Okay? And what they're going to use that as is grounds is like, you see how these people react? We're just using words. Because the whole agenda when Captain Kirk was offed, they said, no matter what opinion you have, no matter what words you say, they're just words, and you should never, bring violence when it comes to something like that. Okay? But, the spirit of the Jake, they're hard-headed. They don't think things through, okay? But let's read this little thing, and then we'll get a couple precepts, and we'll close it out. So this is from the NAACP, okay? It says, urgent warning regarding antagonist group targeting HBCU campuses, okay? And it says, today, Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025, at about 3 p.m., a group calling themselves Fearless Debates. Okay, that's a proud-ass fucking name in and of itself, okay? But it says, appearing on the campus of Tennessee State, TSU, they wore Make America Great Again hats, carried posters bearing inflammatory messages such as deport all illegals now and DEI should die. They attempt to draw students into conversations centered on these messages that were framed as debates but function as provocations. This incident was not an isolated act of political expression. It was an intentional effort to antagonize, disrupt, and instill fear in a space created to be safe, affirming, and supportive of Black students. While we recognize and respect that free speech is constitutionally right, there is a clear and urgent distinction between constructive dialogue and rhetoric deliberately designed to provoke, demean, and endanger the psychological safety of students at HBCU. So even then, America's Constitution, and their laws, America makes laws, okay? They make laws, and those laws that they make are fucking to save their ass and be able to justify the things that they do. They make these laws and they justify the ways that they make them. Just like how the small hats use their book to justify the wicked ass things that they do. Edomites have that same spirit. They have some of the same tactics, okay? It says, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees and that write grievousness which they have prescribed, okay? These people decree these unrighteous decrees. That American Constitution, that's chiefly for the Edomites. Okay, because when a Jake tries to use the Constitution, he gets shot the fuck up and a K9 is on his ass. He's in a real George Floyd situation. You try to use the Constitution. Okay? And that's why bros, exhort one another to say, just be at peace with all men. You get pulled over by the police, if you was speeding and you was fucking speeding, hand over your license, registration. Don't escalate shit, okay? Don't try to get on their level, because their level truly is to get, violent. But Esau nowadays doesn't necessarily use straight up violence. They use their deceits. Okay, they're gonna try to find a way to kill you and get away with it, or they're gonna try to find a way to put your ass in a prison so that you could be a modern day slave. Okay, so don't get on their level and play their fucking game, because you can't win at it. Okay, that's the bottom line. So even you see some bullshit like this pop up, and you got maybe same motherfucker try to walk up to you and try to have you answer some questions. That's a persona non grata, as the Apostle Gabar says, man. You have no reason to talk to this fucking person. You have no reason to speak to this devil. Okay, there's nothing that you could say that would lead to any benefit in speaking with anybody in this situation. Okay, that's when you just put on your two little earphones. Maybe give him a head nod, just be cordial, maybe not, and just keep it walking, because there's no fucking reason to interact with shit like this. Because also things like this could get the ministry blamed. It could lead to a not so good thing, because they don't know shit. They truly don't. Even these people right here, bro, they look young. I'm young myself, but they look fucking young, like maybe 23, 24. Novices, there's not a whole lot of shit that they can know that they probably didn't find off ChatGPT or just some stupid shit. Okay? So you bring this truth out to them. This truth is a sword. It'll cut the fuck out of somebody. But then that's trying to flex your sword, a lot of, can get you in trouble, man. The brothers, they exhort, they say, don't wear your cape everywhere. You don't have to have your cape on everywhere. Okay? It's better to really be quiet about what you know. The scriptures even tell you that. Let me get that real quick. And already in Sirach. So Sirach 8 and 32. No, 32 and 8. Salakia. Sirach 32 and 8 says, let thy speech be short, comprehending much in few words. Be one that knoweth and yet holdeth his tongue. So it's good to know things and hold your tongue. You don't always got to flex what you know. You don't always got to say what you think. You know, sometimes it's better, especially with fucking persona non gratis, to just, go on past them. Okay? Because there's nothing for, they're not gonna benefit in any way, man. But reading on, it says, we are both infuriated and alarmed that groups like Fearless Debates are targeting HBCUs in 2025 with rhetoric that echoes a long history of exclusion, racism, and systemic oppression. The appearance of these individuals on this campus of TSU underscores the politics and ideologies that threaten the being of black people are still real and harmful, and it's just a bunch of bullshit. Them just saying like, stop them from coming over here and, trying to turn shit up. But are they going to? And even then, on another level, are they legally obligated to? Because you already know Esau, especially the MAGA motherfuckers, the maggers, are going to use, the laws of Esau and that Constitution and their right to free speech and wherever the fuck it's at to exercise that. Okay? And as long as they ain't causing up a huge public ass commotion, there's going to be no problem. But that's the thing. These people want to cause that commotion, and they're surely not going to be the ones that are going to do it. They're going to be the ones that they're going to be on the receiving end, and that's just going to further their fucking agenda. Okay? That's going to further the things that they think and the things that they perceive already as the moggers. They don't like you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Okay? But wanted to get Genesis 3. It says, now the serpent, which was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord Yahweh had made, he said unto the woman, yea, hath Yahweh Bashem Yahshai said, ye shall not eat of every tree in his garden. So that serpent, which is Esau Edom before he was called Esau, was in the garden. Okay, and he was subtle, and his seed is always going to be, he has that same nature. Okay, Ezekiel 35 and 5 says, because thou hast a perpetual hatred, and that word perpetual going to an everlasting, and has shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of the calamity, and that time their iniquity had been an end. That perpetual hatred that these Edomites have to you tribes. Okay, they're always gonna have that shit. They're not gonna never not have that. Okay, the scriptures talk about Edomite being born. He's just born wicked. That's how they are. There's no other way to perceive that. If you start trusting them, like the scriptures say, never trust thine enemy. Okay, you start trusting them, that's going to be your ass. Okay, even having conversations with them like that, this can leave you in a bad situation quick, man. This can leave you in a bad situation real fucking quick. Okay, like this guy in the orange, in the orange shirt, he already looked like he getting worked up, man. And that's what the fuck these devils want. They want you to get worked up. You got police. Look at where the police are standing. They're not standing on the same side as the Jakes. Okay, they're standing on the side of the Edomites. And if you have the spiritual eye to perceive that, that's spiritual, bro. Esau is backing Esau. Esau only cares about Esau. Okay, and that's the bottom line. You could get in one of the Psalms of David that no one cares for my soul but you. So at the end of the day, bro, it's always been like that. Nobody really cares about you tribes. No one cares about the men of the Lord. No one cares like that but the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai and the sincere brothers that are around you. Okay? At the end of the day, it's always going to be, us against them. But we don't face carnalities. Because at the end of the day, we're waiting for our power to come smite them. And we just serve our Lord in the time being, and rehearse the righteous acts and fear the Lord and just get by, okay? We're not here to just try to start some revolutions, revolts, and all that fucking other spirit, man. That's that zeal not according to knowledge, bro. Because even then, these people always try to set up these type of fucking, Jakes always try to set up some type of revolution, okay? Always try to set up some type of, the Black Panther Party. Even the NAACP, this is trying to get, rights back to black people. Okay? They always have these organizations, but it's not backed by the Lord, and that's why it never truly, truly succeeds. Okay? The Lord ain't dealing with it. But let's just finish out this precept with Genesis 27, and I'll start at 40. It says, "And by the sword thou shalt live, and thou shalt serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke off thy neck. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherein his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will slay my brother." Okay, this is the subtlety of Esau, man. Okay, Esau hates the tribes, man. He hates them. He wants to smite them. He wants to cut them off from being a nation, pursuant to Psalms, the 83rd chapter. Okay, and it's always going to be like that. All right, but you have to be real quick too. What is it? Ephesians. Yeah, it says Ephesians 5:14. It says, "Therefore he said, awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Hamashiach shall give thee life." Okay, because at one point in time, before you came to the truth, you was like these people. You know, these jakes that are over here, you know, low key, man, like fuck the white man and whatever the fuck you say. You know, some of you might have had that spirit of like, I'm for my people. You know, and that's not a bad spirit to have, because you know, tribes, we're gonna come back to unity truly, in the same mind and in purity. Okay, but right now it's imperfect, and that's why you have, you know, the divides between all the tribes and even amongst themselves. But at one point in time, before you came into the truth, you might have thought like them. Okay, so it says, arise from the dead, and Hamashiach shall give you light. So now that you have that light, now that you have the knowledge of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, you ain't moving like that. Okay, you fucking reading on, it says, "See that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the times, because the days are evil." So, you know, it wouldn't behoove you to be over here trying to fucking, you know, talk and debate. Debating, the spirit ain't for debating. Okay, we're here to bring out this truth, and if a person doesn't get it, then a person doesn't get it. Okay, we're not here to convince people and explain things and try to have, persuade people to believe in this. If you believe in it, then you believe in it because the Lord give you the spirit, because the scriptures tell you in John that any man is sent unto me is sent of the Father. Okay, you can't just wake up and be like, yeah, I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna start doing it. You have to have the spirit to do so. Okay, so talking with these motherfuckers also does absolutely nothing for us, man. Having a conversation with these two jackasses is gonna be a whole waste of your time that you probably could have spent, reading, watching a video of the apostles, being edified. Shit. Even just sitting there for 30 minutes watching paint dry would be fucking more beneficial than that. Okay, but getting this last precept, just putting a cherry on top. It says Revelation 12:12, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, ye that dwell in them. Woe unto the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he had but a short time." Okay, so that just says it like that. The devil he's gonna start coming down with great wrath even more and more, because he knows he has a short time. And guess what? Time is passing. Time is only gonna get shorter. He's gonna come down more and more on you tribes, and this Captain Kirk situation is going to help usher that agenda even further, because Esau is a very cunning devil. All right, he fucking thinks things, he creates plans, and he devises these type of things so that he can get people to fall off. Okay, so that he can get shit to go in the right direction that he wants it to go in his wicked ass ways. Proverbs, the 4th chapter, I believe around the 20th verse, it says he rests not lest he cause some to fall. He really has that in the back of his heart, that he just wants so badly the destruction of you tribes and the furthering of his system. Because at the end of the day, we're less than a year, maybe, anywhere from 3 to 12 months, we could see that Jacob's trouble kick off at a high level. Okay, martial law coming down, the mandation of the RFID micro CHIP, okay, the MOTB. Okay, so Esau's, setting up those things. He's setting up that water. The Lord ultimately is giving them the spirit to do so. Revelation 12:17, it says, "And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai and have the testimony of Yahweh Shai Mashiach." Okay, the dragon was wroth. This devil, white man, the system, was wroth with the woman, which here means Israel, okay? And went forth to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments. So even those of you that are in this truth, soon enough, they're going to start coming directly to the men of the Lord, those that follow Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. It's no longer going to just be on the, the 2/3. Okay, they're going to start coming down on those of you that are in this faith, that are in this truth. And they know that because they have these systems, like the brothers always talk about this system like Palantir. They'd be able to track you down. They'd be able to track your habits, your movements. And they're even ushering in certain systems so that they could track what you do on social media. They create, they released a bill that you can't even do, that you can't make any, anti-Semitic or any jokes, of that nature against small hats on TikTok. Okay, there's a guy that the brother said was facing 10 years for something. Okay, so as you can see, that we're getting towards those times. Those times we are in those times. Okay, we are in those times at the start of it. So okay, be wise, be circumspect about this shit, because that nature of Esau is coming out. His fucking nature is coming out, and soon enough it's gonna just start it's gonna really start snowballing. Okay. But I pray this lesson was edifying. I want to last to give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, B'Ashem Yahushua, B'Ashem Kakodash, Shalom.